Beginning of 2015, I meet my fiance, Jenny, for the first time. 3 years later, end of 2017, my first son, Christian, is born. 2019, around July, we finally move into a house we had built for us. A nice private subdivision in the Philippines. Have a car, have stocked house, have enough money from Alaska. I can take time off and spend with the family. And I'm still not happy. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out why. I think it had to do with, a lot of the way my life had been. 30 years of depression, maybe even a decade of homelessness and other stuff has just affected my brain, leaving this dead spot where just getting by is kind of barely been a thing. It's not caring. I thought having all these things would make me happy and family and my negativity was wearing on my family. Just being together, I'd be still get miserable sometimes for seemingly no reason. If I'm not happy, my family can't be happy. So I talked to Jenny and we decided maybe it was time for me to try to find something other than just the brain dead jobs I've been doing most of my life. The laborer, the seafood processor in Alaska, factory workers, whatever. Is try to find something that maybe would challenge me or excite me or something. I have no idea. I also wanted to try new things. Had seen some things Portland had to offer and realized that, okay, maybe I could try like martial arts or exercise or even dancing and who knows what. So I chose Portland, Oregon as a place to go. It seemed to have quite a diverse range of activities and it was a really friendly place. Kind of liked it. I come back, I try for a few weeks to get established and fail pretty miserably. I don't have the patience or the fortitude to really push through. I just get overwhelmed again and all depressed. Now on top of it is the fact that I'm here trying to establish anything and I'm even more depressed because I'm failing at that. I end up just sitting up in a motel going through about a half gallon of rum every 4 or 5 days. This is how I deal with it. Trying not to sink really low again. So I've been in some horrible places mentally, emotionally. I have a family now. I can't do that anymore. I covered all that in the Mindset series I did. As I'm watching different TV shows and stuff and searching on the internet, looking for different things. I think I ended up watching The Greatest Showman again. It's been a while since I'd seen that. I did like that movie. And for some reason, I guess, I don't know, I just noticed Zendaya was in there. I'd never really seen her in other movies or stuff, so I was okay. I don't know much about actors or actresses. I don't watch that much. I don't know most people by name, even the bigger stars. So I look it up and find a couple other Disney movies she's been in, and I like that. It's kind of entertaining. I like the kind of strategies, like where the movies or people do epic shit that pushes forward in positive ways, other people. For some reason, like other internet searches kept coming up, and found like tons of Zendaya quotes out there for positivity, and I think I realizing she did a lot of positive things. Like go back to where she originated from in Oakland, and we do the school supply thing, or even on Twitter, I remember one example of somebody was getting body shamed, and she just openly invited that person to come work in the fashion industry thing she was starting to build up. Just, yeah, that's really cool. I've seen a lot of people do stuff like that for publicity too. So I'm like, wow. I was intrigued enough to just keep researching on this though. And I believe that then, okay, no, she actually looks genuine. Is doing this because she really is a good person. I keep searching around, and you know, a lot of times on anybody you can find some kind of dirt, or especially in celebrities, tabloids, they even make stuff up and whatever else. I couldn't find one thing, one negative thing. Now, now I'm really interested. I'm like, because I believe this is genuine. I believe her. This is the real her. And I'm thinking, man, this is like very close to the kind of thing I do. Stuff like that. Obviously, in a whole different level, but kindness, generosity, integrity, and the vulnerability of putting it all out there is just wow. Transparency was something I came on the later level to accept. It's one of the things that actually she inspired me to do. It was actually right at that point when I realized that she was for real and I couldn't find anything negative. Because I reflected a few years ago. A friend of mine who's had massive problems with a lot of things in life, doesn't trust men, and especially doesn't trust anybody, whether animals, prior issues. I had seen her after some catastrophic events a couple of years later. I just said hi, and you know, she remembered me. It was like, all right, well, that's cool. And she actually had no problem with me just like running off with her dog and like going for walks or staying around her. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you just hang out in my van or my dog or wherever else. She just lives out of her van. A lot of us do in Arizona. But just a level of trust. I actually just, after everything she'd been through, I was like, why? Why would she trust me like that? I asked her. Yeah, I just really was curious. And the answer she gave me is, out of almost anybody I've met, especially down here, not one person has anything really detrimental or negative to say about you. I'm kind of blown away here. This is one of those moments where I'm just totally taken aback. I consider myself a bit of a prick. I mean, I'm kind of miserable all the time, and I push people away, and that's intentional. I mean, when I do retail, I'm known for it down there. People go up to the boss all the time and say, "You'll never believe what that guy just said to me." And the boss told me, "Oh, you must mean Paul." Yeah, yeah. One reason I still got that job, cool boss. But yeah, to have like everybody that I've been around, like these are other vendors, like for years, and nobody has anything like super negative to say. I mean, I always try inherently to be good and do right by people, but I had no idea that it was like that static of an impression. It was, and I saw that in like Zendaya among all the other traits, and it's just like looking in a mirror for me. I'm just so blown away. That was the moment I'm like, wow, we're like so close personality wise in a way. Two completely different people with completely different ambitions and ideas, man. Perhaps this is where I could have been if I had focused on being comfortable in my skin, had been goal oriented, and not beat myself up over life starting as a kid. She chose this whole positive route and did everything. Writing books, singing, acting, you name it. And I was on the lower ground. But seeing that was like, wow, there's this potential here. I've never felt that kind of connection before. This huge, overwhelming state of euphoria, pun intended. But it was sustained. It's like I've had moments similar to that, a few, very few. But it's like, you may have experienced it. You go to like a Tony Robbins or a David Goggins or Gary Vaynerchuk or something like that, or even Will Smith or something. I'm not sure if he does motivational speeches, but people like that just make you feel like, wow, and supercharge you. But once you leave, the adrenaline fades off. And in less than a day, it's probably mostly gone. But this euphoria from Zendaya was sustained. Sustained for over a week. And I kept recharging. I changed my habits very shortly after in that first week just to keep the momentum going. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever quite felt this solid before. I was like, I don't want to let it go. I don't know if it'll ever happen again. This is crazy. So I start working out right away, and it's like, well, obviously, the way to avoid depression is you get on a treadmill, you don't get off. It's cardio. You just keep going. Keep the adrenaline, all the endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, everything, try to balance out. You get it going. You can't be depressed. So I get laggy, I get tired, I get like, I don't want to do this. I don't even like exercise. And it's like, but then I just think, yeah, as stupid as it sounds, it's just like, what would Zendaya do? And I just, yeah. That was my motivation. I just picture her and I get back at it a little bit harder, just push through. Whether I wanted to do it or not, it didn't matter. I just, forced myself through it. But actually, I started picturing her and thinking about that. It's like, I actually had a smile on my face and I'm doing it. It's like, I hate this shit, but yeah, now I'm happy. It was the weirdest feeling. Because this kept going for a couple of weeks, at least, in the beginning. And I just started looking at like motivational videos as well, trying to figure, okay, well, what else can I do to keep, myself going? And again, I covered a lot of that stuff in the mindset videos I did. But the inspiration she gave me that got me through the first couple of months easy. Obviously, there's always going to be ups and downs. It got me to not only do the mindset videos, the motivational things, the start exercise, but it's also what inspired me to have the motivation and the push to start like with an improv group, to taking and acting a class or two, to start aerial dance. And even at work, it was like really frustrating at times. I ended up starting with Amazon. So it's just, you get into a new job and getting it all down. It's another kind of brain dead job, but that was temporary while I'm working on all these other things. I now kind of had a direction. The direction to try to work towards acting. That's what these other three were kind of related toward. Start studying all sorts of interesting things like social entrepreneurship and others, because actually before had seen Zendaya. I didn't even know what social entrepreneurship was. It was researching around her that introduced me to that in the beginning, and just so much I've learned from her. Just, but one thing I was really scared about after that initial couple of weeks, I began to have that whole imposter syndrome, something else, and I was like, wait a minute, what if I was wrong? What if that what I have seen her as, it's just somebody I never met, and maybe I'm totally off base. Maybe the research I did wasn't accurate. At that point, I became scared. I was like, I didn't want to watch any interview or anything to do with her because what if I find out I'm wrong? I'd taken this one person and made a lifeline, like an anchor, so I could deal with anything else that came up. Totally unfair to her, I understand. And actually, I felt guilty about that, justifying by the fact that, well, me meeting her is probably not the same as me meeting the lottery, and spoiler alert, I don't play the lottery. But that actually went on for over a year. It was actually more. Believe it or not, it was about 3 days ago was the first time I was able to actually watch an interview that she gave, something to Vanity Fair. I'd just been too scared for almost 13, 14 months to double check and see if the one person I was using as my anchor was truly the person I thought she was. Which I've seen quotes before. She never wanted to be a role model for exactly that reason. People personify, and it could be total inaccuracies. But at the time, that's what I needed. I just had to have something I could focus on, something that if all else fell through, I could grab onto and pull me through. But I decided, shit, I gotta know. So I watched through this 35 question questionnaire. As she's rattling it off, I'm like, wow, she really was that person. But this was insane because it was even more than that. I understood. I started this thing. It was kind of like Bruce Campbell and the friggin' Evil Dead there. I mean, it's like, okay, fine, bam, press play, and then my subconscious leaps out screaming. No longer in the background. It's like, whoa, stop that shit. What are you doing? You know, I said it's like total Bruce Campbell. It was like, just like, oh. Yeah. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah. Had to resist that urge to just make it through the entire 15-minute video. I was just amazed. I was like, wow. Maybe she wasn't what I thought. Maybe she had changed, but no, it's exactly what I thought it was. And not just embodying those traits that I look at and see what I could be, but she had done all these amazing things at such a high level. But I noticed this level of uncertainty as well, and I'm just like, wait a minute. One of my biggest problems through most of my life has just been the refusal to make decisions on any levels. And I was like, she's one of the people that inspired me to start trying to make decisions, to become decisive, to become more assertive. And I'm like, she's kind of the same way. I mean, asking her half her questions was like, I don't know. I'm just, that's really cool. And she goes on about, well, one of the questions was kind of people she most admires, I think, and it's going on about, she's like, I can't find the word. It's like, well, maybe kindness, but it's not exactly that. And it's like, I mean, I know exactly what she meant, but she's saying like, yeah, some people are just generally good. And another thing I've introduced in the last like month and a half is I'm actually on my second DE&I course. And yeah, looking at inclusive leadership is actually allowed me to define kind of that. But my whole life, I've kind of known exactly what she's talking about anyway. It's, yeah, some people are just inherently good. I think part of it is like the vulnerability part that exposes it, and that's like something she does all the time. I think that's a large part of being able to see it. It's also the curiosity, the courage, the commitment, just to do the right thing. You know, these are people that don't talk about doing these things, but actually just do it, maybe even without thinking. You know, it's really solid personality traits. I'm just like, damn, man, again. I just can't believe how on point some of this stuff gets. Lastly, she said, I think the closest thing she said she had to her regret was after The Greatest Showman was like, said it was in such great shape from doing all the trapeze stuff. I remember in like an earlier video, like much prior, she had gone on about that was one of the hardest things she had when she was doing aerial, and it was like real challenging. So I was happy to get away from it. But in this later one, was saying she kind of regretted not sticking with the exercise, seeing how far she could take herself and physically. I just found that really funny. Because I mean, this is the person who indirectly inspired me to do almost the same art and get into aerial dance and try to avidly pursue that. And I'm still, after 14 months doing that. It's just kind of amazing the coincidences that happen in life. If you're like me, I'm pretty philosophical in a lot of ways, and definitely believe in something greater than us. It's been defined so many ways and through different religions or even self-help books or other stuff. I covered a lot of that in my mindset series too, but there is something out there. I do believe that. So it's not coincidence that all this stuff is happening. The universe is providing in one way or another. When you open your mind and your heart, and I'm just amazed that it's still going. I mean, I keep putting out the effort, and this amazing stuff just keeps coming in, and wow. Yeah.